Frenzied Flame is definitely one of the most unique and powerful weapon types in all of Elden Ring, and today I'm going to be showing you the most overpowered build that you can make with the Frenzied Flame to destroy any boss with the madness inside you. So if you're excited, make sure you hit that like button and ensure that you're subscribed so you never miss crazy builds just like this one. But without further ado, let's jump straight into the build. Now, just like all of the other builds that we've covered on this channel, this is going to be a level 150 build. Now I'm going to pop those stats on screen for you, but they go as follows. We've got 50 points into vigor, 25 into mind, 24 in endurance, 20 in strength, 35 in dexterity, 10 in intelligence, 55 in faith, and again 10 in arcane. Those two 10 points in intelligence and arcane are my base stats, as I've started off with the wretch build at the very beginning, but I would highly recommend that you use whatever's got the best faith or dexterity start, as those two stats are going to be the main focus points for the damage output in this build. So realistically, we shouldn't be putting any extra points into arcane or intelligence. The reason why that's important is because we're mainly going to be focusing on the Frenzied Flame incantations, hence why the faith is so high. And then our main weapon of choice is going to be Vike's Spear, which again is boosted by faith, dexterity and strength. In fact, the scaling on Vike's Spear is best with dexterity, secondary with faith, and then thirdly with strength, being B, C, D respectively. But this build is also heavily revolved around the incantations we're going to use. Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount of incantations we can use around Frenzied Flame, and there's realistically only 2 or 3 that are going to do a high amount of damage output. But the highest damage dealing incantations we're going to be using are Frenzied Burst, Unendurable Frenzy, and the Flame of the Frenzy. We can then also use stat boosting incantations such as Howl of Shibiri and Golden Vow, and because we're going to be so heavily focused on incantations, we are also going to be pairing all of that with the following talismans. We've got both Faithful's Canvas Talisman and the Flock's Canvas Talisman, because believe it or not, although they're the same thing, they do stack together. Faithful's Canvas Talisman, aka the lower affecting talisman, grants a plus 4% damage output to all incantations, and then the Flock's Canvas Talisman adds an additional 8% on top of that. And then we're also going to be running the Fire Scorpion Charm, because the Frenzied Flame are of course a fire type damage, so we will also be getting the bonus of the 12% upgrade in damage from the Fire Scorpion Charm. And then the beauty about the Frenzied Flame incantations is that all of them are chargeable, so we can make use of Godfrey's Icon as our 4th talisman as well, as that will again boost the amount of damage we're going to be dealing. And that's by a further 15% on top of the extra bonuses we've got already. But if you don't think that's enough buffs for the Frenzied Flame, I would also highly suggest completing Hyetta's questline, aka the Frenzied Flame storyline, because at the end she will grant you the Frenzied Flame Seal, which will again boost Frenzied Flame incantations by a further 20%. It is also a weightless seal, so you won't have any carry weight when using it, and if you go into New Game Plus you can get 2 of these things, granting again an additional 20% boost if you're holding it in your offhand. But I unfortunately don't have that, so this build will be only utilizing the one, but if you've got 2, definitely make sure that you're using 2. And then just finally, to round off all of the buffs and damage output that we can do with this build, we are also making use of the Wonder Physic and putting the Faith Knot Crystal Tier inside of it, along with the Flame Shrouding Crack Tier. Again, Frenzy Flame is a fire-based damage, so we will also be getting the 20% boost to flame damage, and then we're also getting the plus 10 Faith, with the Faith Knot Crystal Tier again boosting the damage output with just general incantations. And then once you combine all of that together, you're going to be doing damage output similar to this that you're seeing on screen right now. It is outright ridiculous. Now, for those of you that are fond of the channel, you'll probably notice that we've gone through literally every single build possible in Elden Ring by now, and Frenzied Flame is one of those builds that has taken me a little while to actually cover on the channel. That is just simply because I never really completed the Frenzied Flame storyline. I did in my first ever playthrough, never really went back to it, but it was a whole lot of fun coming back and using the Frenzied Flame again, and I kind of forgot just how overpowered you can make it. It's not necessary, but if you also wanted to go and farm the Black Dumpling Helm, that will also grant a 10% bonus to your damage output whilst you're affected by madness. So you can probably see at the beginning of some of the boss fights I'm going to be showing in the background that I'm utilizing that to again grant myself even more damage output than I already had, and we're doing somewhere between 13, 14, 1500 damage just with the Frenzied burst alone. To be honest, you only really need that and the Flame of the Frenzy, and you're pretty much good to go, because you can just snipe everyone at range with the Frenzied burst, and the Flame of Frenzy is a stance breaking god. I think I used 2 full bursts against Malekith with it, and I staggered him, allowing me just to obviously get an easy crit on them and go into the second phase in no time at all. I was worrying that the Frenzied Flame was not going to do too much damage against the later game bosses, because I vividly remember it not doing too much damage back in the day when I first used it, but I clearly was using it completely wrong and forgot just how easy it is to break enemy stances with these incantations. Of course, if you get bored of sniping your enemies or just obliterating everything on your screen with the Flame of Frenzy, we do have possibly one of the best spears in the game, again for just staggering enemies, not to say breaking their stances, but just keeping them stun locked and hitting enemies at range, keeping distance, making it very hard for them to hit you back. It also has a very unique Ash of War, where you fly through the air and plunge the ground, again spreading the madness in front of you, dealing 1000 damage with the initial strike down, and then around about 500 to 600 damage with the continuous damage of the Frenzied Flame if they're also still inside that area effect. So there are lots of ways to play this build, and you can get it relatively easy. The only thing that would take you a bit of time to get is in fact the Frenzied Flame seal, because you do need to go down to the secret area in the subterranean tunnels, past the initial Moog fight, and go to the secret area where the third fingers are. So it can take a little while to get there, but I'll be honest, you can just use another seal in the meantime. The only bad thing that I would say about this particular build is it's not the greatest against dragons or anything that has a flame resistance. Of course, with this being heavily around fire damage, if you're going up against enemies that have a high resistance to fire, then you are going to have a tough time trying to defeat them with this particular build. So that's sort of like the one caveat with this type of build, is it's not really great against those type of enemies, but for the other 90% of the enemies in the game, it is absolutely fantastic, and is also great online as well. There was a few examples of me catching people off guard, either with the Vike Spear's Ash of War or the different Frenzied Flame incantations, again sniping them at range or hitting them with the AoEs of the other incantations. There is a vast way to use this build and catch people off guard with different types of attacks. The fact that the Vike Spear Ash of War also lingers around is brilliant, as they can walk into it or not go far enough and get caught by it at the very end. Just allows you to keep the pressure on your enemies or invaders, and it's just super fun and satisfying, obviously pulling off an insane kill with the Ashes of War. But as always, like I say, I'm not the absolute best at this game, so there may have been something I've missed or ways that you can improve this build, and by all means, if you know any ways in order to do that, let us know in the comments down below, because I'm sure most people will also appreciate any ways to make this build even better than what it already is. And let me know if you use Frenzied Flame or Madness builds as sort of like your go-to. It's definitely not my necessary go-to, but like I say, it's still a lot of fun to use. And let me know what sort of builds you're using at this moment in time. I know we're waiting for that DLC to drop, so let me know what types of builds you guys are using in the lead up to that. And like I said at the beginning, if you don't mind me asking once again, if you happen to like this video or enjoy this type of content and want to see more crazy builds just like this one, make sure you hit that like button down below. It's the quickest and easiest way to let me know that you want to see more. And if you want even more crazy builds, there's loads of different videos on the channel, so definitely check that out. And if you want to stay up to date for the future content around Elden Ring, make sure that you're subscribed as well and hit that notification bell, and that way you'll never miss a future video. But with all that said, that's everything from me, guys, so thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you watching this video, but for now I'll let you go and have an absolute blast with this build, and I guess I'll catch you in the next video of whatever it is that we make. Bye bye.